Hey, this is Michael Lindsay from Vital MX. We're out at the newly dubbed Fox Raceway riding the 2019 Yamaha YZ250F. For 2019, Yamaha has brought in a huge host of improvements for their 250F, starting from the most obvious are the same improvements we saw on last year's 450 from them, which is an all-new chassis and bodywork. The chassis is actually a pretty big change for them. Of course, you can overall see that the angles of all the frame spars have changed, and what they've done is, they mentioned, is trying to improve the triangulation of the frame. The points at which everything turns is more even now. There isn't as many dips or there isn't as many close points in the frames. And what this does is allow the force to be more evenly spread throughout the frame. Everything experienced from the engine to the input of the bike, it just makes it a little bit easier for them to balance the rigidity of the frame. This allows them, of course, to improve cornering, straight line stability, just kind of the whole overall mixture of what you're looking for from a good bike. As for the bodywork, the most major change is up in the front of the bike. Everybody's been talking about for years how their radiator shrouds feel so big, and part of that was not that they were too big at the maximum point, it was more in the middle. They were concave, where the shrouds grew quickly and then tapered off to their final width, where the new ones are convex. They start skinny and then they bow out late. They've done this by moving the radiators forward, changing the whole airbox layout, and this is really a huge improvement to get around the bike. Especially that all matches in with a new seat profile that is lower, both in the saddle and in the end. Saddle's like 9 millimeters. At the rear of the bike, it's 18 to almost 20 millimeters. And then the side plates themselves and the exhaust have been repositioned, reshaped to make it easier to get back on the bike. All this really ties into a bike that has a much more wider characteristic, which we'll get into in a second, because that also adds into what they've done with the engine. As we've all said for quite a few years now, the YZ250F is the king of torque in the 250 class. It's even been dubbed a mini 450. It's really easy to ride a gear high, which helps the suspension work better, and it just makes the bike feel overall very comfortable. But it doesn't have quite the high RPM characteristic of some of its competition, most notably the bike that's been flying the most in the shootout, the KTM. So they went back to work on the cylinder head this year. They've changed the exhaust angle out with the pipe. They already have that really steep intake angle. They're just trying to get all the flow in the head and back out quickly. They've got bigger cam buckets to run a higher lift, more aggressive cam, and they've also bumped up the compression ratio from 13.5:1 to 13.8:1. For the first couple laps, I actually mistaken the engine a little bit. It definitely makes a lot more in the mid to top end range and continues to pull farther, but it almost felt like it lost a little bit on the bottom. It actually makes around the same amount of torque. It's just a much more freer and snappier feeling characteristic. So instead of pulling, kind of feeling like it does this long flat pull from low to mid, it gets up and goes quicker as it hits the mid-range, goes through the top, and it allows you to get out and grab that next gear even quicker. So overall, I would say this is a big improvement, adding this bit to the top. They're claiming around a change of maybe a horsepower and a half at that peak, and it really gives it what it needs to fight everything in the class. It's still, for me, the easiest bike to ride down low, ride that gear high, but it gives it that extra range up top to be ridden aggressively, which really matches in with all the suspension setting changes and the frame changes. The bike just feels a lot more knife's edge now. It feels a lot more precision, where the old bike was a little bit bigger, a little bit slower to react, but it was very comfortable and it had this real down low. It was a bike that was easy to ride lazy, but maybe took a little more work to ride hard and aggressive. The new bike balances that out much better. It gives you a 250F that really feels like it's ready at the top of the class to be able to use in any section any way you want. And of course, the biggest thing everybody wonders about the Yamaha is that front end feel. Everybody's kind of argued the vagueness or the lack of maybe turn-in feel that they've had. The changes they made to the frame, to even the fork setting, the fork lugs, all the stuff they've done to try to improve that feedback to the rider have been really successful. And what I mean by that is, no, it doesn't turn in as quick as, say, a Suzuki or a Honda, but it has a lot more front end feel. And by the biggest way I noticed that is based on where I was sitting on the bike. I was actually sitting in the middle to rear of the bike on corner entrance way more than I did on the previous bike, where I always felt like I was getting right up on top of the airbox and trying to get that front end to plant coming in. Now it feels way more natural to sit in the middle of the bike, set up early, get that leg out, and let the bike roll into the corner. Like I said, it doesn't snap in as quick as some of their competition, but it's very competitive in, and the biggest improvement is how well it rolls to the middle. I always felt like the Yamahas, you'd come in really hard, and because the bike would tend to stand up or do weird things in the middle corner, it took a lot of momentum to get through the middle of the corner before you could get back on the throttle. The new bike can be rolled through the middle of the corner very simply, and I even feel like you can get on the throttle a lot earlier on the new setup because it'll actually stay leaned over and it carves the middle of the corner better. Suspension-wise, we're talking about all new components. We've got a little bit bigger damping rod and piston inside the fork. We've got a new shock body. Overall, the settings Definitely a little bit of just a stiffer bike. It feels a little bit more held up in the stroke, and it has more of an aggressive feel. It's just a little bit easier to push into the corners. It holds up more, but it's not too stiff. It still keeps that Yamaha / KYB plushness a lot of people have come to really expect from this manufacturer. When every year a lot of people definitely say the stock suspension on this bike is capable for most of the people that are going to buy it. And I think they've really done a good job there. I didn't honestly play much with the clicker setting today. I was playing with the balance. Because the front end feel is so much better on the new bike, I went from the recommended 100 millimeters of sag down to like 102, 103, just because I felt like I had enough front end grip that I wasn't needing that on the entrance. I'd rather settle the bike down and ride it off the back aggressively. The other two big key features to talk about here are the electric start. There's no more Kickstarter, it's electric start only, so it has all new engine cases built around this to make sure there wasn't much of a weight penalty when adding it to the bike. And then the other comes from the mapping side. Yamaha's been talking a lot about their Wi-Fi tuner app that's free to download. There's a couple different maps built into it. It's really easy to connect to your bike by Wi-Fi, play with all the mappings, log all of your hours on it, everything. But what's really cool about it is now they have a map switch up top and you can assign different maps from your phone to that. For the guys that maybe earlier heard me talk about how it feels like it revs up a little bit quicker and doesn't have quite that roll-on deepness of the old engine, there was actually a really quick way to fix that. Their aggressive map that I tried gives it a lot more of the characteristic of the old bike. When you roll it on, it has a lot deeper punch and it feels like it just hits earlier and has this pull more off the bottom. And then at the top end, it doesn't pull quite as aggressively, giving it kind of a mixture of the old to the new engine characteristics. So for the guys that are looking more for that 250 that feels like the Mini 450, you can definitely play with the mapping and get really that characteristic you're looking for. But for the guys that have been wanting the Yamaha to be more of a lightweight weapon, a little bit more nimble and have more of that aggressive power characteristic, I feel like they really nailed that with the 2019. Now, of course, with this bike, there's a ton to talk about. I'd love to list it all in this video, but for people that want a deeper impression, a little bit more info on each individual change, I'm gonna break that down in an audio file on our website under this video. So if you're on vitalmx.com, go ahead and scroll down. If you're on YouTube, hit the link below, it'll take you to our page. I'm gonna go through this, try to give you guys as much info as possible. We have Shootout coming up, and I gotta say, I think the Yamaha has a really strong chance at taking the top spot back. We'll see here in just a couple short weeks.